So, what was your first thought when I called you and told you we're not going to be long distance anymore?
I just thought to myself, like, oh my Lanta, holy mother of Abraham Lincoln, lather me up in maple syrup and call me Mrs. Butterworth, I'm happy. I was happy. I'm Josh.
I'm Lindsay.
And we are a couple that started making videos on TikTok, and people told us that we should do a YouTube channel, so... Told us, yes. So here we are.
Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yep.
Hit the like button.
Yep.
It takes like 2 seconds.
Yep.
And then ring the bell.
Yep.
So let's go.
So what we're going to be talking about today is questions asked about long-distance relationships. Because we dated for a year and a half long distance. And when we first started dating, we dated for what, a month?
Before I moved to...
Blacksburg, Virginia.
Yep. So it was definitely interesting.
Oh gosh, yeah, it was.
Starting a relationship immediately into a long distance relationship. We barely knew each other. We'd only known each other for like a month. Well, we've known each other for a while.
But we didn't know each other.
We hadn't been dating or anything like that. Like, we're still getting to know each other, basically.
Right. You know, it was an interesting time for the both of us, but oh my gosh, we learned so much about each other.
Yeah.
And there were so many good moments and so many, like, not so great moments because long distance, it sucks.
It's not the most fun experience.
This is the worst.
However, I wouldn't trade it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I would not trade it. If someone came up to me and said, Lindsay, if you could go back in time, would you start out at the college you're at now? Like, from the beginning, so that you wouldn't have to be long distance. And I don't think I would.
People always do crazy things when they're in love.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to dive into these questions, and I think that we're pretty knowledgeable on all these topics because, you know, we're experts and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the best.
First question, do long distance relationships work? So obviously it did for us.
Yep.
But it doesn't always work for everyone. That's totally okay. I think it's a matter of what type of person you are and whether you're going to make the commitment to make it work.
Right.
I think that's super important.
You know, I think with long distance relationships, it's not a matter of will it work, but it's more so a matter of how much are you willing to put in.
Yeah.
Because if you're not willing to put in a lot, then, I mean, the chances aren't that high of it working out. Yeah, exactly what she said.
Yep.
You know, with us, it did require a lot of effort because, I mean, I was the one that would always drive. I was the one that would always attempt to surprise her. And I always failed, granted, but it was still the effort that counted. And because she picked up on my little lies all the time because she'd be like, what are you doing? I'm in my dorm. No, you're not. And she'd pull up my location on my phone because I didn't turn it off. And she's like, you're driving to Blacksburg. I'm like, drink flavor. All that to say, it really just depends on how much work you put in. And if you're willing to put in a lot of work, you have a very high chance of it working out versus it not working out. Do couples in long distance relationships have less satisfying relationships? You know, for me, yes and no. And here's why. Yes, it is less satisfying in some areas because personally, there were a lot of moments where I wanted to be with her physically. There were a lot of memories that I made. There were a lot of things that I experienced where I wanted to share those experiences with her and I couldn't. And there were times I wanted to give her a hug when I was upset or just be with her and I couldn't, you know. Now, it was satisfying in other areas because we got to FaceTime, we got to talk. Technology is amazing today. I can't imagine doing long distance back in the 1800s.
Gosh, that would be crazy.
Send a horse to give you a letter.
Well, even in the 80s.
The 90s
stuff,
even.
the
just
90s,
phone calls. You couldn't use FaceTime.
Yeah, so definitely.
Yeah.
And it taught us a lot.
It did.
Definitely taught us
so much.
To be patient, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Even though we weren't together, we still learned a lot about each other. We talked all the time, which is awesome, you know.
I would call her all the time.
Okay. No, you hang up. No, you. Okay.
When I was at the gym, I would call her as soon as I had her on schedule. Like, I knew exactly when she was doing everything. That way I knew exactly when to call her.
Yeah.
When she was walking from class, and we'd coordinate everything. And there'd be times where she'd be busy, and I would just call her real quick and say, hey, you're beautiful. I love you. Click.
Yeah. So it works out. I wouldn't say that it's less satisfying. I say that it's worth it. But there
Right.
are negatives to
I
having
agree.
a long distance relationship too.
Definitely.
All right, third question. So, how often should you visit one another?
Once every 6
So-
months.
Oh gosh, if you would have done that, that would have been horrible.
That-
Or if I would have done
Oh,
that.
gosh.
I would say it depends on where you are and how far
Right.
away you are from each other. We were about an hour and a half, a little bit over an hour and a half away from each other, so it wasn't as bad. But we were both in college, so it definitely was hard sometimes to schedule like trips up to see one another. So I would say it depends, but if you're like not that far away from each other, we tried to at least visit one another once a month. But most of the time we were able to do it 2 times a month, but not all the time. If you are farther apart, let's say you're like
5 hours or
5
something.
hours or something even crazier, like on the other side of the country, I would, I would just say as much as you possibly can.
If you can make it work, make it work.
Make it work, yeah. Definitely schedule times to see one another because it's so special.
I completely agree. I would go and visit Lindsay a good amount, and it's just the little things that matter. So even if we spent just an hour together, I remember one time it was her birthday, and she had no idea that I was going to do this, but I drove up just to take her to dinner for an hour and then drove back. And
Yeah.
we still remember that day.
It was so sweet.
So honestly, when we say as much time as possible, we literally mean every minute counts in those types of situations.
Yeah, definitely.
Next question. Have you followed us yet? Because if not, you definitely should. So go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the little bell so you can follow us all the time and we can be your new best friend. Woo! What is the most challenging part of a long distance relationship? Oh gosh.
I would say probably just not seeing each other as much as you would like to. Especially being in college, I think it's more difficult because
Right.
you're with all of your other friends and you're doing things and you're like, oh, I wish I could do this with them, and you see couples walking around campus or whatever. Oh my gosh.
I hated that.
It sucked. I was like, man, I wish. But I don't know. I think that's the hardest part. So for me, I really like snuggling, cuddling, hugs, especially when I'm stressed. So that was really difficult for me to not have him there when I really needed someone to give me a hug. So, because I'm not just going to go up to my friend and be like, I need a hug.
Go to your professor. Go hug your professor.
Yeah, go hug my professor.
Well done.
But would you agree that would probably be the hardest part, is not seeing each other a whole lot?
Yeah, that's the main thing because there's so many sub-issues that stem from that.
Yeah.
Like, for me, another huge thing that was an issue was just communication, because when you're not in person, it's so much more difficult to understand what the other person is saying.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I could text one thing, but because, one, we were in a new relationship, so we didn't understand each other's, like, text language, because that is a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that just caused a lot of miscommunication, because I could say one thing like, I'm going to eat some pickles now, and she could interpret it in a different way and be like, are you mad at me?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
So yeah, definitely not seeing each other was probably the biggest issue.
Fifth question is, does distance increase certain problems? Of course it does.
Yeah, definitely.
Like what we've talked about, communication, like that's definitely a tough one because, if you're not, I don't know how to explain it, but if you're not in person with someone, it's just completely different. It's like, you can't, it's like there's a barrier of some sort.
Oh, there definitely is.
I don't know how to explain it, because you'd think, well, you're still talking to them on the phone, like it's the same thing basically, but it really
Right.
isn't, because you know, you can't hug them afterwards after you like apologize if you know you get in an argument or whatever it is. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. You know, I mean, we had moments where we disagreed with things, and it made it that much more difficult because I couldn't talk about it in person. But there was also the positive of that, because we could be like, okay, we're frustrated by it, and it was just hung up. And then that gave us time to cool off because we're not in person. And then the way that it usually went after that was me calling her and saying, hey, I'm stupid. I'm sorry.
I had my moments too, trust me.
Oh, yeah. You definitely did.
Oh my gosh.
Last question. How do you maintain a happy, long-distance relationship? Be intentional. That's the biggest thing.
Communication. Super important.
Ambition.
Make time to visit your significant other. I think it's super important. Like, you just have to be willing to put all the commitment in.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know, I am not trying to toot my own horn. But I made a little pinky like I'm sipping tea.
Oh my God.
So what I would do a lot of times is I would give her flowers. I'd plan activities in her area, you know, just to make her feel special. And just, that's what you should do. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but it definitely worked out for us.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically the whole video. And if you have more questions, comment them down in the comments.
Yes.
And maybe we can make a part 2 of this video.
Oh, that'd be
answering your
fun.
questions.
Definitely.
So, yeah. Make sure to subscribe to our channel,
Like the video.
and ring the bell so you can stay notified.
Woohoo! All right.
Woo! Join us next time.
Bye.